A woman who measured life in acquisitions blocked his path to the single remaining seat, and he did not know the jet that carried them both through the bruised evening sky was a ghost born from his own mind. She held a phone to her ear like a shield. Her voice was a polished instrument, sharp and confident, carving up the airspace in the small cabin. He smelled of sawdust and rain. She smelled of expensive perfume and recycled air. Elara Vance saw the world as a series of assets and liabilities. The man in front of her was a liability. He wore work boots, scuffed at the toes. His jacket was worn at the elbows. He moved with a slow, deliberate economy that she mistook for hesitation. Her entire life was a campaign against hesitation. The flight attendant made a soft, apologetic gesture. Elara's gaze, a tool she had sharpened in 1,000 boardrooms, slid over the man and found the attendant. She did not speak. She did not have to. Her expression conveyed the precise cost of this delay, calculated to the second. The man, Hayes, simply waited. Patience was a resource he had in abundance. He looked out the small porthole window at the blur of the runway lights. He knew the exact tensile strength of the fuselage, the precise torque limits of the engine mounts. He knew the fatigue life of the landing gear. He had designed them. He had bled ink and coffee, and hours he would never get back onto the blueprints that became the metal skin containing them all. He stepped aside, not because of her glare, but because it was the most efficient way to resolve the impasse. Elara swept past him, a rustle of fine wool and a clipped, dismissive thank you that was not a thank you at all. It was an invoice for her time. She settled into her seat and opened a laptop. The screen cast a cold blue light on her face, erasing any trace of the world outside. Kalen took the seat across the aisle. He did not have a laptop. He had a worn, leather-bound book and a pen. Elara was flying to this forgotten stretch of country to acquire a final parcel of land. It was a small piece of a very large puzzle, the future site of a next-generation logistics hub for her global conglomerate, Vance Industries. It was a deal her father, the company's formidable founder, would have closed in an afternoon. She felt the weight of that legacy. The holdout was a single property owner, a recluse according to the file. Someone who did not understand the language of progress, the language of money. The jet taxied, then roared. The ascent was smooth, a testament to excellent engineering. Elara felt a flicker of annoyance as the man across the aisle began to sketch in his book. He was drawing, not writing. Complex, interlocking shapes, gears and struts. She looked away, back to her spreadsheets. Numbers were clean. Numbers were honest. The flight was short. As they began their descent, the plane banked, offering a view of the checkerboard landscape below. Forests, dark and dense. Fields, lying fallow. A single dirt road snaking toward a cluster of buildings. Her future hub. Kalen looked at the same patch of land. He saw something different. He saw the way the water ran after a storm. He saw the subtle shifts in the soil composition, visible in the changing colors of the autumn grasses. He saw the fault lines, not on a map, but in the memory of the earth itself. As the wheels touched down with a gentle chirp, Elara was already on her phone. A car was waiting. Her assistant, Anya, was a disembodied voice confirming the schedule. Meeting with the local council at 8. Dinner with the regional planner. Tomorrow, the holdout. She deplaned without a backward glance. Kalen was the last one off. He paused at the bottom of the stairs and touched the fuselage of the jet. A quiet, private gesture. A greeting to an old friend. He walked toward a battered pickup truck, parked at the far end of the small airfield. He did not seem to be in a hurry. Land does not rush, he often thought. The next morning, Elara stood on a ridge overlooking the valley. Her local liaison, a man named Peters, pointed out the boundaries of the proposed site. It was perfect. Almost. He indicated a small square of land right in the middle of their parcel. The holdout. A man named Hayes owns it, Peters explained. He will not sell. Elara's jaw tightened. Everyone sells. It is just a matter of finding the right currency. Peters cleared his throat. This man is different. He was an engineer, you know. One of the best. Worked for a top aerospace firm years ago, then just vanished. Came here after his wife died. Elara's focus sharpened. An engineer. She processed the information, recategorizing the man from a simple obstruction to a complex one. "What is his first name?" she asked, though she felt a cold certainty creeping in. "Kalen," Peter said. "Kalen Hayes." The name landed like a stone in a still pond. The man from the plane. The man with the scuffed boots and the sketchbook full of gears. She felt a prickle of something unfamiliar. Not embarrassment. More like a system error. Her initial assessment had been catastrophically wrong. She drove herself to his property that afternoon. The directions were simple. Follow the dirt road until it ends. The road ended at a simple, well-kept farmhouse. A large workshop stood beside it, its doors open. The sound of a lathe humming came from within. Kalen Hayes was not a simple farmer. She saw him inside, bent over a piece of machinery, his focus absolute. He was not wearing the worn jacket from the plane. He wore a simple work shirt, the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. He looked up as her car door closed. His expression did not change. It was not hostile. It was not welcoming. It was a look of pure, neutral observation. "Miss Vance," he said. His voice was calm, unsurprised. She had expected to have the advantage of surprise, another miscalculation. "Mr. Hayes," she began, her voice crisp and professional. "I am here about your land." "I know," he replied, wiping his hands on a clean rag. A small girl appeared in the doorway of the house. She had his dark hair and serious eyes. She held a piece of paper. "This is my daughter, Lily," he said. The girl walked toward Elara, her steps hesitant but determined. She held out the drawing. Elara took it automatically. She expected a drawing of a sun or a flower. It was a detailed, technically precise drawing of a planetary gear set. The ratios were even noted in the corner in a child's careful printing. Elara stared at it. The world of spreadsheets and profit margins tilted on its axis. "This is for you," Lily said quietly. "It's a harmonic drive." For a moment, Elara was speechless. She looked from the drawing to the girl, then to Kalen. He watched her, his gaze unwavering. He was not just seeing a CEO. He was seeing a person confronted with a piece of unvarnished truth. "The land is not for sale," he said, his voice gentle but firm. Elara found her footing. "Every piece of land has a price." "Not this one," he said. "This land has a memory. And you should know the bedrock here is unstable. The preliminary geological survey your company filed is wrong." She stiffened. "Our surveys are conducted by the best firms in the world." He nodded slowly. "Firms can be wrong, or they can be told to find a certain result. Most people only see what is flowering," he added, his gaze sweeping over the valley. "They miss what is moving underneath." She left with the drawing in her hand. The image of the gears felt heavier than the paper it was drawn on. That evening she called Julian Croft. Julian was her rival on the board, a man whose ambition was a barely concealed weapon. "The deal is stalling, Elara," he said, his voice slick with false concern. "The board is getting nervous." "The geological survey," she said, cutting him off. "I want to see the raw data." There was a pause. 2 seconds of silence. Long ones. "Elara, it is a formality. The site was cleared. It is a rock-solid investment." The phrase hung in the air. Rock solid. "Send me the data, Julian," she repeated. The data arrived an hour later. It was a summary report. Clean. Perfect. Too perfect. The next day, a story appeared in a major financial journal. Vance Industries air falters on flagship project. The article was full of anonymous quotes from concerned board members. It painted her as indecisive, weak. It was Julian's work, a clean, professional hit. She felt the familiar cold rage rise, but it was muted by a new, unsettling current of doubt. Doubt in the project. Doubt in the system she had mastered. She hired a local, independent geologist on her own authority, a quiet man with dirt under his fingernails and decades of experience reading the local terrain. He was supposed to deliver his preliminary findings to her hotel that afternoon. He never arrived. His office said he had a family emergency. His phone went straight to voicemail. That night, as she drove back from a tense dinner with the town council, her car's engine sputtered and died on a deserted stretch of road. The road that led past Caelan Hayes's farm. Her phone had no signal. The darkness outside the car was absolute, a thick, rural blackness she was not accustomed to. Headlights appeared in her rearview mirror. The old pickup truck. Caelan pulled up beside her. He did not ask if she needed help. He got out, opened her hood, and shone a flashlight inside. "Fuel line was cut," he said after a moment. "Clean cut." Elara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. This was not a random breakdown. This was a message. "You can stay at my place for the night," he said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. "The phone lines are probably down too, if I had to guess." She found herself nodding, accepting the logic of the situation. She, who always controlled the situation. His house was warm and quiet. The air smelled of wood smoke and baking bread. Lily was asleep in a small room, a book about astrophysics open on her chest. On the wall were more of her drawings, a cross-section of a jet engine, the double helix of DNA, a diagram of the human heart. He made her tea in a thick ceramic mug. He did not ask about the car. He did not ask about the project. He sat across from her at a large wooden table he had clearly built himself. The silence between them was not awkward. It was solid, grounded. "Why did you leave aerospace?" she asked, the question surprising her. It was not on her agenda. He looked into his cup for a long moment. "My wife, Elena," he began. "She was an engineer too, a geotechnical engineer. Better than I ever was. She saw things others missed." He paused and the hum of the refrigerator filled the space. "We worked at the same company. They were building a new research facility. Fast-tracked. Elena was the lead on the site analysis. She found anomalies. Subsurface limestone caverns. Unstable shale formations. She flagged the site as unsafe. Demanded a full stop. Her report was buried. A new, revised report appeared a week later, signed with her name. It declared the site perfectly stable. He looked up, and his eyes held a pain so old and deep, it seemed a part of the geology of his face. The project manager was a young, ambitious executive, eager to make his mark. His name was Julian Croft. Elara's cup stopped halfway to her lips. The name struck her like a physical blow. "The building went up in record time," he continued, his voice low and steady. 6 months after it opened, a section of the foundation experienced catastrophic failure during a minor seismic event. A sinkhole opened under the west wing. Elena was there inspecting a fault in the support structure she had warned them about. He did not need to finish the story. The silence finished it for him. "There was an investigation," he said. "The company settled, a generous settlement. Julian Croft was quietly transferred, then promoted a year later. The official cause was listed as an unforeseeable natural event. "I took the money," he said, "and I took Lily, and we disappeared. I bought this land because it is solid, because I drilled the core samples myself." He stood up and walked to a heavy wooden chest in the corner of the room. He unlocked it and pulled out a long, cylindrical tube. He laid it on the table and unscrewed the cap. He carefully unrolled a set of blueprints and geological surveys. They were dated 12 years prior. "Elena's originals," he said. "She made copies of everything. She always said you need a baseline to measure the truth against." He pointed to a series of seismic readings and soil composition charts. "Now," he said, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket, "this is from the core sample I took from your proposed site last week." He laid his new data next to her old data. The patterns were not similar. They were identical. The same unstable limestone formations, the same treacherous shale deposits. Julian is not just cutting corners, Elara thought. He is building a tomb. Again. In that moment, the project was no longer about land or profit or her father's legacy. It was about the memory of a woman she had never met. It was about the little girl sleeping in the next room. She looked at Kaelin, at the quiet, unyielding integrity in his face. Her world of transactions and leverage suddenly seemed flimsy, a house of cards built on a sinkhole. "What do we do?" she asked. The "we" was unconscious, but it hung in the air, real and solid. He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time, and he saw not a corporate raider, but an architect, someone who knew how to build things, or, he thought, tear them down. "You use the tools you have," he said. "I have the truth. You have the boardroom." The next 48 hours were a blur of calculated action. Elara worked from Kaelin's kitchen table, her laptop finally connected to his satellite internet. Her loyal assistant, Anya, became her lifeline to the outside world. "Anya, I need you to do something for me," Elara had said into the phone, her voice low and urgent. "Do not ask questions. Just execute." Anya, who had been with her for 10 years, simply replied, "Send the coordinates." Elara sent the data from Elena's original surveys. She sent Kaelin's new core sample results. She had Anya hire a new third-party geological firm, a small, fiercely independent company known for its incorruptible founder. They were to mobilize immediately under a different project name and drill new cores at the site. Their work was cloaked in secrecy. Meanwhile, Elara played her part. She called Julian. "Julian, I am ready to concede," she said, her voice laced with finely crafted defeat. "You were right. I was being overly cautious. I am calling an emergency board meeting for Friday to push the final approval through." She could almost hear the smile in his voice. "Excellent, Elara. A wise decision. The board will be pleased." He thought he had won. He was already measuring her office for new furniture. While she planned, Kaelin worked. He repaired her car, his hands moving with a surgeon's precision. He cooked simple meals that tasted more real than any food she had eaten in years. He and Lily moved around the house in a quiet rhythm of mutual understanding and unspoken affection. Elara watched them. She saw a life built not on acquisition, but on maintenance, on care. The night before the board meeting, the new survey results came in. Anya sent them through a heavily encrypted channel. Elara opened the file. The data was a perfect match to Elena's and Kaelin's. The report concluded with a single sentence in stark, bold letters. Under no circumstances should any construction of significant weight be attempted at this location. She had it. The baseline. The truth. Kaelin drove her to the airfield the next morning. The same private jet was waiting. As she was about to board, he stopped her. He did not say good luck. He handed her a small, smoothly polished piece of granite. It was cool and heavy in her hand. A reminder, he said, of what is solid. She closed her hand around the stone. It felt like an anchor. The boardroom was a theater of power. A long mahogany table polished to a mirror shine. Men in dark suits, their faces impassive masks. Julian Croft sat at the head of the table in the chairman's seat. Acting chairman for now. He gave Elara a condescending nod as she entered. "Elara, glad you could see reason," he said, his voice resonating with authority. She took her seat. She placed the small piece of granite on the table in front of her. It made a soft, definitive click against the polished wood. Julian began the meeting, his presentation a masterpiece of corporate rhetoric. Growth, innovation, shareholder value. He presented the falsified geological survey on the main screen, its data points glowing a reassuring green. A rock-solid investment, he concluded, using the same phrase again. He smiled, turning to Elara. "Elara, I believe you had some final thoughts before we vote." She stood up. She did not look at Julian. She looked at the other board members, meeting each of their gazes. "You are right, Julian," she said, her voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the room. "This project is about a rock-solid foundation. It is about what lies underneath." She clicked a remote. The screen behind Julian changed. It now showed 3 geological reports, side by side. The first was the one Julian had presented. The second was Kalen's analysis. The third was the new independent survey. 2 of them were identical, their data points a threatening, alarming red. The room was silent. "The discrepancy is undeniable," she said. "The site is critically unstable. Building there would not be an investment. It would be an act of criminal negligence." Julian leapt to his feet. "This is absurd. This last-minute, unsubstantiated data. It is not the first time you have seen data like this, is it, Julian?" Elara said, her voice cutting through his protest. She clicked the remote again. A new set of documents appeared on the screen. 12 years old. A project file for the North Valley Research Facility, and a photo of a smiling woman with dark hair. "Elena Hayes," she said, "a geotechnical engineer who warned you about a nearly identical site, a woman who died when her warnings were ignored." She projected Elena's original suppressed report. The data points were a ghostly echo of the ones for the new site, a pattern of deceit, 12 years long. Julian's face went pale. The mask of control shattered, revealing the panicked fraud beneath. "This is slander," he stammered. "It is evidence," Elara corrected him. "Evidence of a pattern of behavior that puts profit before lives." A hush fell over the room. The board members looked from the screen to Julian's ashen face, to the quiet, unshakable woman who had just dismantled him. At that moment, the doors to the boardroom opened. 2 quiet men in suits entered, flanking a woman from the district attorney's office, and behind them, silent and solid as the stone on the table, stood Kalen Hayes. He did not say a word. He just looked at Julian. And in his gaze, Julian saw not just the end of his career. He saw a reckoning. Julian Croft resigned before he could be fired. An investigation was launched into the collapse of the North Valley facility, with Elena's original reports as the central exhibit. Vance Industries cancelled the logistics hub project. Instead, Elara announced the formation of the Elena Hayes Foundation for Engineering Ethics, funded with the capital that had been allocated for the hub. Its mission was to ensure that the truth, the baseline, was never buried again. Elara's victory was not loud. It was a quiet, fundamental restructuring. 3 months passed. The seasons turned. Elara stood in her penthouse apartment for the last time. The boxes were packed. The view of the city skyline, once a symbol of her power, now seemed distant and cold. A landscape of glass and steel built on foundations she no longer trusted. She left the keys on the sterile marble countertop and walked out without looking back. She drove for hours, leaving the city behind until the concrete gave way to asphalt, then to gravel, then to dirt. She did not call ahead. She followed the road until it ended. She saw them at the edge of the property, near a low, crumbling stone wall that marked the boundary between the meadow and the woods. Kaylin and Lily. They were rebuilding the fence, not with concrete and mortar, but with the slow, patient work of finding the right stones and fitting them together, finding how they balanced, how they held. She got out of her car. The air was clean and smelled of pine and damp earth. Kaylin looked up. He saw her, and a slow, genuine smile touched his lips for the first time. It changed his entire face. He did not seem surprised to see her. It was as if he had been waiting. Lily saw her, and her face lit up. She ran to Elara, her small hand grabbing Elara's. "You came back," the girl said. It was a statement of fact, a truth she had never doubted. Elara walked with her to the wall. She took off her jacket, rolled up her sleeves, and looked at the pile of stones. She knelt and picked one up. It was heavy, real, its edges worn smooth by time. She found a place for it in the wall, fitting it carefully into an empty space. It settled with a soft, solid sound. Kaylin came and stood beside her. He picked up a large, flat stone, the kind used to anchor a section of wall. He placed it next to hers. His hand rested on the stone, near hers. Not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth, close enough to share the weight. They worked in silence, the only sounds the chink of stone on stone and the rustle of the wind in the trees. They were not building a barrier. They were building a foundation. Some fences mark where a world ends. Others show where one begins.